Today is Monday, February 26, 2024. The time is 6:02 p.m. This is the special session of the School Board of Trustees of the School City of East Chicago. The place is the Administration Building, 1401 East 144th Street, East Chicago, Indiana, 46312. And we are also via live stream at www.scec.k12.in.us. This is a special meeting of the school board in public to conduct school corporation business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gibson King.
Present.
Trustee Gomez.
Present.
Trustee Smith. Trustee Artiega.
Present.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Present. May we please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, the approval of the agenda. Don't see anybody here, but are there any comments from the audience in approving the agenda as written? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board approving item 3.1?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by trustee Artiega. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Gomez. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gibson King.
Yes.
Trustee Gomez.
Yes.
Trustee Artiega.
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez.
Yes. Item 4, new business, 4.01, approval of contract for HVAC installation systems. Dr. Mitchell.
Yes, today we have before you contracts for the 3 schools that we have HVAC's going to be placed in. These schools will be part of our ESSER $3. We do have Leela Simmons, our CFO, that will give a report. Ms. Leela.
So within the last couple of weeks, we went out for bids for the 3 HVAC systems. And for these, we did a walkthrough of each company, and some companies came back and did a second walkthrough. So this is being handled by our project manager, which is HPM, and also Smith and Associates, which is our architect. So they opened the bids, I do believe, on the 20th. And Harrison came in the lowest bid at 6.2. McKinley, lowest bid was 7.1. Washington, lowest bid was 7.3. Harrison and McKinley is done by Panagram. Pangier, and then Washington is done by Amber.
The Pangier.
Amber is located in also.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, do I hear a motion from the board to approve 4.01?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Gomez, second by trustee Artiaga. Any discussions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Trustee Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. Lincoln School, Lincoln School, they're not in this, right?
No,
So-
they were not selected.
Yeah, I remember some conversation, but you, fill me in on it, what the reason why they were not.
Lincoln? Lincoln was not on the top of the list. We went in order to the most damaged school that we need to continue to have HVAC system in, and particularly McKinley came in first, Harrison, and then Washington. Actually, I'm sorry, The administration building came in first, but it's for the kids, so we went with Harrison, Washington, and McKinley. And it's a total HVAC, tear out, electric panels, new vents through all the classes, total. New towers put on the roof, all the way through.
Okay, so it was not because, I know there was some talk about Lincoln School going to be closing at one time, so that's not the reason?
No,
They
not
would-
at all,
Okay,
not at all.
so they pretty much don't really, they don't need it as bad?
We're not gonna say they don't need it. All our schools basically have their original HVAC system in place.
Yeah,
Including this building needs it, but we went with what Smith and Associates assessed the worst buildings that we needed to get done right away.
Yes, thank you. Following that line of questioning, so these are the three most populous elementary schools that we have, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And in terms of the HVAC system at Lincoln, I know that was, kind of an exchange that the school district did years ago with the old Lincoln building. Do you happen to know, like, the age of that system and condition of that system?
Do know we did some upgrades when we reopened Lincoln.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the information handy from,
Well, this I can speak to because at one point, Ivy Tech was looking at Lincoln, and that was in 2013, 2014 when I was president. I know that I think the city may have had something to do with that, and I know that they did some changes to the HVAC system to upgrade it as we were looking at going into that building. After that time, I believe you all decided to take the school back and reopen it, and some other work was done. So there's been a couple of upgrades or fixes to that building that didn't happen to other buildings.
relatively speaking, again, how would you, I don't have the documents in front of me, how would you rate the HVAC system at Lincoln?
I can get you those documents from Smith and Associates where
Okay, that'd be
they
great.
did a total assessment of all of the buildings here in the district. And it will show where it falls in line, where Lincoln fell in line with that one.
I would just be concerned, I was almost hoping that Pangier would take all three of these, but even that they've taken two of them, I guess my question would be, do they have the manpower to conduct, two, those are pretty significant, installations?
The reason why Pangier did not take all three of them, and one thing was because of the bid, but
Right.
in the first two bids under McKinley and Harrison, at their time, their mechanical company that they had on in the bid said that he could not spread his people that far out.
Yeah.
So it was a hint of they didn't have enough mechanical. But after that, they ended up actually going with another mechanical company, but at that time, we had already closed the bids.
So, yeah, then what's the assurance, if you will, that we'll have this HVAC system done in a timely manner, both of them at Harrison and McKinley?
Harrison, McKinley, and Washington.
More so, I'm just concerned about Pangier right now.
Here,
Yeah,
actually, I think Dr. Mitchell can speak on this, that we put a clause in the contract.
Right. What we did to ensure, anytime that you do large contracts like this, you always want to put some type of, you want to have different types of fail-safes inside of the contract. So what we put in there is that by date certain, these systems has to be done. And if the systems are not done by that date, then there's a penalty in there that the company will begin to pay us damages. And we had that, the project manager put that into each of the contracts as an assurance to us that these systems get done before the timeline for the federal dollars expires. And by doing that, that means that we won't have a cost associated with this. If it goes beyond that timeline that the federal, that the federal government has given us to utilize those funds, then the additional cost burden is upon the school district. So we want just to make sure that this was done before that, that clause kicked in. And I believe that we did, that these have to be done, did we say 20 or 30 days before that deadline to give us a little bit of cushion, just in case there were some issues? We also made sure that before we let all the contractors know that how important this was, and that we strongly encourage them to work together to get this across the finish line. And you will see that in these bid packets that there may be one contractor, but there's some subs that's already a part of this, so we know for sure. And also, the project manager, as well as Smith and Associates, and the guy that we hired to do some consulting with the HVAC system, they also put out additional fillers out there for resources, because the original HVAC company that had some equipment trained, they were behind schedule about 3 or 4 months. And so what they did, they went back out and found, working with Train, found other companies that would be able to supply all of the equipment necessary to get this done in a timely manner. So at this point, I think that we crashed the schedule up front. We would have been at this point in April if we wouldn't have crashed the schedule. We crashed the schedule about 6 weeks ago.
Yes.
To force this to happen early, because the original timeline, this process that we're going through right now wouldn't have occurred until April. So we've saved ourselves another 4 to 6 weeks there. So we feel that crashing the schedule early on and having our project managers go out and find the equipment to make sure it's going to be delivered in a timely manner, that we will have all the equipment necessary for these contractors to perform the duties in a timely manner, thus getting us making us compliant with the regulations of the federal government and spending these dollars.
I saw some of those items that you're mentioning. I also saw that there's a list of, of other projects that they have done. Did you consult with some of the others?
Yes,
Some of
they
their-
went through, they took 2 days. Our project manager took 2 days after the bid to consult with references
Yeah.
of both companies.
Then I guess I have maybe just quickly 2 more questions. One is, maybe Attorney Harris can address this. I know for a long time, back when I was on the city council, and even more recently, there's been conversation about having, utilizing the services of people who reside here in East Chicago. And I can't recall the phrase right now. Attorney Harris, maybe you can help.
Yeah, every
Would that
community,
apply to this?
not necessarily, but I'm familiar with the legislation that you're referring to. A lot of communities have bid preferences for local contractors. They have local hiring ordinances.
Local hiring ordinance.
Yeah, so, that varies from community to community. Here, I don't know, and Dr. Mitchell, you can help me here, whether or not that was included in the RFP process, where you talk to them about compliance requirements and any local hiring. So its applicability here, I'm not sure whether it was included in those documents or not. Typically, they're somewhat aspirational as opposed to, do it or you lose the work. They typically don't have that type of teeth anywhere, but they are aspirational to try to encourage local participation as opposed to anything else, but.
Right. And the language that was used, that was communicated to the contractors that were here, was strongly encouraged. By this being federal and state dollars, that it doesn't necessarily lend itself to the community bargaining agreement, which is different than a collective bargaining agreement. That's where you get your bid preferences and things like that, and things of that sort. Didn't apply here, but because we are using Pangier, and we're using, and they're using local trade halls, we will have, highly likely that we're going to have people that live within the city boundaries working on this project in the school district.
It'd be helpful, just, at least from my point of view, to identify if we do have employees. I know oftentimes I've sat here and asked, why are we going out of the city to make purchases of items that perhaps could be bought here at the local hardware store? So it would be helpful for me to understand what we're doing to help out our own businesses and our own people here. Granted, I know a lot of people earn a trade or develop a trade and perhaps move out of town, but, I think that's something we should look at. Again, it was part of that when I was on the city council, and I think it's at least showed that we were making an effort to do that, to either hire locally and/or make local purchases. So that's something I'd be interested in.
And Trustee Gomez, if you look at the screen, you'll see that each of the contractors, we asked them to select their subcontractors early on. So you'll see that there are some contractors here that's in Lake County. What we lack here in East Chicago is the type of talent that it takes to put in these type of systems. But because we're trying to make sure that if we can't have a direct benefit to our city, we at least want to make sure that we keep those dollars within our county. And you'll find that, and there should be 3 subcontractor documents that you see like on the screen that will have all the subcontractors listed on the projects. And so Gluth Brothers, we know that they're not local, but they're close. In Midwest Electric, they're also right down the street. So again, we try to do our best to make sure that we included that local preference.
Now that we're having this discussion, I appreciate you saying that, because now it's coming back to me. I did this Buy American resolution where, I wanted us to buy steel here from East Chicago, and then we couldn't find it in the city due to the county. Can't find it in the county, go to the state, and so on. So I think that's something we should perhaps consider doing, and Attorney Harris might be able to help us with that effort. The other question I would have is that, as we talk about, I know that, for example, there was painters on here. Is there any opportunities for us to have a partnership with our CTE program in any of the activities that go on here?
I could talk to the vendors about that. I am not going to say no, because our students need it more, but I don't know
Yeah.
if we have a CTE program in mechanicals.
This is something that's going to put us in a really great shape coming into projects after this. You know that back in November, no, was that November or January? You all signed the articulation agreement with IKORCC. That's the Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. And so that's your carpenters union, your millwright, and all that. And so we do have that relationship now. That's going to be inaugurated in the summer before school is out. We're going to do some kind of orientation in the summertime. Then in the fall, that program will start. So we will have our guys starting, and that articulation agreement is a pre-apprenticeship program. So they will feed directly into the union once they have that. So they'll have the skills that's necessary. At this time, our CTE programs don't have the level of the technical requirements for this. But Ms. Simmons and I, we did speak with Ms. Maren Lee, the director of the CTE program, about having some of those students that are in the business program come back and give their services to us within the building, so we don't have to have any more hires for that type of administrative work. And Ms. Maren Lee selected 10 students that we're going to be interviewing and bringing them, finding jobs for them within the school district. And hopefully, that will be the start of a relationship of us growing our own.
Thank you. I've often advocated, as you know, for union positions when we can get them. I am familiar with Pangier, but I'm not familiar with Amber.
So Amber, I actually did some research on Amber also. Amber just recently completed a $15 million job in Joliet School District. So I reached out to Joliet CFO and plus superintendent to see how basically the company, they work well with the company, or was there hiccups that I needed to know about? I didn't hear nothing but a good word about them, and mostly because Amber is also a HVAC company. So they within themselves can produce the product quickly and get it out and on the property quickly. And I know Jewel has something to say, but I have one more thing to say. HPM, if we need something, which is our project manager company, if we need something like an emergency, we just needed a steel beam at Harrison. He went locally to our steel companies here and got the beam. So mostly, anything that he needs right away that is not part of this contract, he goes locally to the locals to get it and to put it in place.
I was just going to give a comment regarding the CTE question. I understand Dr. Mitchell's comments that we're not quite there yet in terms of the CTE program, but when you talked about some of the business students, there is a unique opportunity from a project management point of view to study the work that's being done. I know that's something that a lot of kids don't get exposed to, a lot of people, period, don't get exposed to, particularly with projects of this magnitude, right? All of us included, right? It just doesn't happen very often. Only my work with municipalities exposes me to it, but otherwise, this is something pretty unique for kids to see this type of project develop. And if they can, as part of a project, identify each phase of the project and what all goes into it, and maybe if it's chronicled by video, you could later use it in a CTE program too, so.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for here, yeah, and I'd like us to try to take advantage of whatever we could. And I'm sorry, is Amber a union company?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like the idea of us trying to get as much out of this project as we can.
But
I-
we're just having also a project manager on property,
Uh-huh.
this whole construction property. That'd be good summertime, because
exactly.
June and July is gonna be the busiest work of this project. And to become a project manager is very, very interesting. I begin to love it.
Actually, well, once you take that test, you gotta prove you have 4,000 hours,
I'm pretty sure at this point,
right?
I'm
So,
5 years in, I think I can do it. I can pass the test.
yeah.
And, Dr. Mitchell, the other thing, I'm assuming we have the laborers unions involved in this?
And so,
So that might be another
so
opportunity.
because of this, we did go union, and because it's federal dollars, we had to do Davis-Bacon wages. And so we did make sure that these union shops, all union shops abide by Davis-Bacon wages. So we did meet that. We had to have a certification or affirmation, and that affirmation is in your packet, that they are Davis-Bacon wages that will be paid out to the workers on these jobs.
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Arteaga?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes. The next date and time for our next regular meeting would be Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 6 PM. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by trustee Gomez. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Arteaga. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Trustee Gibson King?
Yes.
Trustee Gomez?
Yes.
Trustee Arteaga?
Yes.
Chairman Rodriguez?
Yes, meeting adjourned.